Welcome back to the CoDaKrew podcast, a show where we analyze the latest storylines, updates, and drama of the footballing world. In a few days, we'll drop our first Premier League match week prediction of the season, but for now, the spotlight is on some early cup clashes. Liverpool take on Crystal Palace in the Community Shield, and PSG are up against Tottenham in the UEFA Super Cup. On paper, the favourites are obvious, but if last season taught us anything, it's that there's no such thing as a sure bet in the sport anymore. So today, Swapnil and I will analyze these two matches and discuss just how real the threat of an early upset is.
Right, and I think we can test that no sure bets theory right away with the Community Shield. Obviously, Liverpool are heavy favorites, but as we've seen with the FA Cup final, Palace have a knack for taking control of cup finals quickly. This is the kind of early season matchup that can blindside you if you're not sharp. For Liverpool, it's going to be a chance to stamp a little early authority onto the new campaign as we look to repeat this year. And for Palace, it is a first-time shot at this trophy after that historic FA Cup run. You've got one team here that's been on a good run for titles as of late, and another that has been waiting decades for a trophy. And we're going to see in this match just how hungry these two teams are for more silverware.
And I think another contrast in this matchup is continuity vs change. Crystal Palace's starting 11 from the FA Cup run a season ago has not changed one bit. Meanwhile, Liverpool have brought in quite a few new players. Hugo Ekitike and Florian Wirtz are going to be key in whether or not they're able to break down Crystal Palace's low block in this matchup, and we'll also see the effect of playing Milos Kerkez as well as Jeremy Frimpong in a competitive match for the first time. Will that help them break down a low block and use that overlapping width to get more chances on the offense, or will it leave them more vulnerable to counters?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at Liverpool, the big signings have really changed the picture for them. They've been so loud in the market. You have Wirtz as a creative headline signing. We're still maybe going for Isak, but let's just say like that's off the table for now. Presumably that's not going to happen before the Shield. Even still, we've got Wirtz, we've got Ekitike as well to add even more firepower up front. These are serious reinforcements, and we have given Arne Slot some nice new tools to work with. But our depth has been trimmed in places. Personally, I'm particularly concerned about the back line. I mean, we sold Kwanzaa to Leverkusen. We've had some movement around other positions, which I feel like leaves some concerns at center back. It's unclear if Van Dijk will be playing after he missed the doubleheader against Bilbao, and Joe Gomez, for all his talent, has always been a question mark. That leaves Konate, who is by no means a bad player, but if something happens to him, we could be in real trouble. Slot has done a good job of integrating the new stars, but he needs to be careful as well to protect the team from short-term rust if rotation does become necessary. But yeah, no, even though maybe the back line has some concerns, I think the front line will more than make up for it. And if we do leak a few goals, I think we'll be able to score a lot more.
I mean, this is what I'm looking at. I think the one potential issue that can hamper Liverpool's offense is that while you have those amazing fullbacks, Kirkis, and especially Frimpong, that are so good offensively, that will basically drive in space on the byline and allow Salah and Gakpo to have half spaces, to be more central, which is arguably, especially where Salah plays at his best. The thing that Crystal Palace have are two wingbacks in Tyreek Mitchell and Daniel Munoz, who, despite being very offensively strong, are also surprisingly defensively solid. If anything, maybe Jeremy Frimpong could take a few notes. Anyways, if they can slow down Frimpong and Kirkes, this could turn into a central battle. And while obviously you still have Wirtz, you still have that front line, players going in central, you have the opportunity to overload the midfield, make runs in behind. I still think that Crystal Palace have a very solid backline that you'll have to contend with. Besides Chris Richards, Mark Gahey, and the other one, who I can't remember right now, and Maxence Lacroix, you still have to deal with Daichi Kamada as well as Adam Wharton, who have been very defensively solid as well, and have a good knack for noticing passing lanes and blocking them, which will make it harder to find Gakpo or Salah or Ekitike. So I think there is a big question mark. Liverpool probably will have the bulk of the possession, and we'll expect Crystal Palace to sit back, but I don't think it's going to be as easy to break through this Palace defense as you may think if you're just looking at the starting lineups on paper.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Though I don't think that Liverpool's play style is going to change too much. Obviously, we've got lots of new signings. We're playing a tough opponent here, like you said, especially with their strong backline. But Slot, I feel like, has been pretty consistent tactically between like when he was at Feyenoord and when he came to Liverpool, had his first season here. I think he's going to try and keep those core patterns that won the league. He's going to have some pretty high intensity, central overloads, lots of counter pressing, while letting Verts roam between the lines as well. And I was saying earlier, we're going to have to see how much energy these teams bring to this game because a lot of people are of the opinion that the Shield is basically a glorified friendly. And so then, if that is the case, maybe the teams won't take it seriously. But if Liverpool does take it seriously versus they don't think too much about it, it will make a real difference, I think, based on their play style.
Well, one thing I can tell you is Palace is going to take it seriously. That's for sure.
Yeah, Palace, of course, because they've just won their first trophy in 30 plus years, and they could get another, and obviously they're going to try. Liverpool, like I said at the start, we have won a decent bit over the past few years. We don't need it as much, but again, if we do take it seriously with the roster we've got now, this game could get real ugly. We could see something like PSG v Inter Milan in the Champions League final. But here's what I think is going to decide it. If Liverpool score early, the game can open up, and I think, will look very comfortable. We could maybe score another, a third, fourth even. But if Palace can keep it level for a while and they win those midfield scraps, our somewhat absence of depth in the back half could make the last half hour tighter than people would expect if Palace can manage to get those breakthroughs toward the end of the game. But again, I think really what we have to try and do is just score early to make things easy for us.
Yeah, and just to be clear for any new viewers, we refers to Swapno. You can show your jersey if you would like. I am a Leicester fan personally. I have no horse in this race. I just want to see a good game, which I think is what we're going to get. And, I mean, there are two questions that you raise with this. One is, will Liverpool take this seriously? Personally, I think they should, because while we have seen Slot experiment with the new system, I think the biggest change, while there's a lot of continuity, of course, is the fullbacks. Because if you're pushing so much more forward, especially Kirkes vs Robertson, obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold was always pushing up, but Robertson was the more, let's say, pragmatic fullback. Not to say he was like a back three or anything, but more pragmatic. How will Liverpool deal with that when they face counters? And this is a good test because Palace are a very strong counter-attacking team. And the other question, as you're saying, is will Liverpool maintain a strong central presence in the midfield, or will Palace break through? Because if Kamada and Wharton get the opportunities that they want, they're going to put in balls in behind for Mateta. And in that situation, with that weakened backline, that could be a world of danger for Liverpool. Also, as I was talking about, when you push up the fullbacks, especially again like Frimpong, that could potentially be a really bad matchup. Eze vs Jeremy Frimpong, with all due respect, I think we all know who wins that matchup in a one-on-one situation. And if he can take advantage of half spaces, drop him behind, allow dynamic playmakers like Mateta, Sarr, even Daniel Munoz, like not only are those good players, those are good finishers. Palace might not necessarily need the majority of the chances in this match, but we saw they didn't get a lot of chances against Man City. They didn't get a lot of chances against Aston Villa. They still won both those games in the FA Cup in the lead up to get into this match. So, as you're saying, I think the longer this game stays 0-0, the higher the chance that Crystal Palace just take one opportunity, score a goal, sit back, and coast for a 1-0 win.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Though, I think while that is obviously the outcome Palace are gonna want, they're gonna want a game like against Man City where they score early. I think it was 16th minute was that goal, and they score early and they kind of just hang on for dear life. But honestly, I think with all of Liverpool's attacking talent, especially what we've added, I'm pretty confident that we can score first. And I think if we do, it's going to be a lot harder for Palace. It's not going to be they get that one goal and they try and keep ahead. They've got to keep up with us for a lot longer than they had to do against City. And I don't know that they can manage it. I mean, I don't think that they will manage it. I agree with most people that Liverpool are definitely the favorites to win here. But yeah, I think it'll be a harder matchup than City for them. I mean, if you look at that game against Man City, Pep had he was experimenting with a 3-5-2. It kind of backfired. Palace took pretty good advantage of it, but Slot, like I said earlier, he always plays kind of close to a certain style. He doesn't experiment too much, and I think he's going to play much closer to how he usually would than Pep did there. And so again, like Palace, they're not going to have as many gaps to take advantage of. And if Liverpool do score that first goal, they're going to have a world of trouble trying to catch up again.
The one thing I will say though is even if Liverpool do score the first goal, I think Palace will trust that. And sorry, I don't mean to push back against your team and crap on it. I obviously Liverpool are the favorites. Don't get me wrong here, but I think even if Liverpool do score an early goal, Crystal Palace know in themselves that if they create good tactical outcomes for themselves, if they can take advantage of half spaces, play counters, even just like if Verts is pushing up more than, for example, Szoboszlai did last year, obviously, can a Kamada, can a Wharton especially make an extra pivot and then try to take advantage of the midfield there? The way I see it, if I'm Crystal Palace, I would feel confident that at some point in this game we score a goal because in Palace's last 7 friendlies, not last 7 friendlies, in their last 7 competitive matches from last season, they scored a goal in all of them. No matter whether they scored first and coast to a 1-0 win, whether or not it was a dominant game or a high-scoring shootout, or even if they go down 1-0 first, they always found a way to at least score a goal and make this game interesting. So I don't know if you want to say a prediction now, but I think it's pretty likely to me at least that both teams will score. Because again, Palace do not need a lot of chances. They are very good at converting them. They are very good at creating them out of nothing. And yeah, I mean, I'm just worried what's going to happen when Liverpool don't have at least one fullback that's staying back and providing at least some sort of assurance. This sort of reminds me, by the way, of Klopp's maybe like I think it was 1 or 2 seasons after he won the Prem. That was when Robertson and Trent were being pushed up so highly that it really cost Liverpool on the counter, and Klopp had to retroactively adjust. I'm not saying Slot is going to make that same mistake again, but with the personnel that I'm presuming he's going to start in its first actual competitive match, not a friendly, that could potentially backfire.
Yeah, no. Let's see. I will drop my prediction. I just actually want to drop some stats real quick that I looked at. So, Crystal Palace, they're new to this competition, right? They've never won the first division before. They only just got their first FA Cup, so they would have never qualified before this. And first-time Shield competitors tend to lose. I looked this up on Wikipedia. The last time that a new team to the Shield won the title was Derby in 75. And since then, 4 teams have tried and lost, 2 of them to Liverpool. So Palace would need to break a long-standing precedent to put a new name on the trophy in their first effort. What is in Palace's favor, though, is the short-term trend. 8 of the last 10 Shields have been won by the FA Cup entrant. And I think that kind of somewhat backs up the idea that, oh, it's a glorified friendly, because you have the Prem winning team that maybe isn't taking the match as seriously, and the FA Cup team usually not in as good a place as a team, and so they really want that silverware. And so then you have those 8 out of 10 Shields being won by the FA Cup entrants. The other 2 were won by Man City 2 years in a row. Liverpool, we got our chance as league champions, but we lost to Arsenal. And that was 2019-20 Arsenal, the Gunners who somehow managed an FA Cup win while getting obliterated in every other competition. So it's not a great look for us. And also, Palace have 4 wins from their last 6 matches at Wembley. So not a bad record. The long-term precedent isn't great, but the short-term seems pretty well off for them. With that said, I am going to give them in 90 minutes let's see, a 20% chance of winning outright. Again, it's like a smidge above where the bookies have them, but their FA Cup form and the one-off nature of this game is going to bump them up in my view. On pens, though, if it does come to it, I still edge Liverpool.
But what's the overall chance, in your opinion, then, of Palace winning? Or I guess, in other words, what's the chance of this going to pens?
Ooh, okay. Well, let me think. What is the chance that it goes to a draw? I'm gonna say
if you're gonna go by the bookies, I think it was something like 20%.
it is
right?
20. Honestly, a lot of community shields have gone to
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
pens
say.
lately.
I
But
think,
the thing is,
yeah,
community shields are pretty cagey usually. But I do think, like you said, you're confident Palace can score. I think they can definitely score a goal, and I think Liverpool can get the scoring on as well. So I don't think it'll be a cagey match here. And if that is the case, then I think a draw is a bit less likely. Like I'd say 0-0 in a tourney like this is more likely than, say, a 3-3 and then it goes to pens. But I don't know. I don't see a draw as being as likely as it might have been when, I don't know, Man City v Arsenal was the matchup or something of that sort. I'll say 20% chance that it goes to draw. 20% Palace win outright, and then I guess the other 60 is for Liverpool.
Okay. I just have one percentage for the outright chance. Not outright, but I guess that's the chance overall that Palace win this. Maybe I'm putting it too high, but I'm saying 30%. Because there's a few aspects we need to look at that I don't think we've even discussed yet. One is, this is going to be the first time that Slot is dealing with these players in a competitive match. Sure, there's some friendly experience there, obviously, and a lot has looked pretty decent, but there's always a difference between how you played friendlies and how you play once the season starts. That is often something that benefits title-winning teams, but it can also work the other way around. And the other issue I have is the potential for Liverpool to just ghost in terms of scoring goals. Because Salah will be clinical. If he gets chances, I fully expect him to score. But the one concern, I should say, the one concern I had while watching Liverpool in the preseason was that Ekitike and Wirtz, in my opinion, and maybe you'll disagree with me, did not seem that clinical to me. Maybe that is adjustment period, and I do expect that to go away relatively soon into the season. But again, this is the first competitive match. Will we see them play at their best? I'm not so sure. So my overall prediction, I think it's going to be a 3-1 win. I know you said community shields are typically low scoring. I looked at the last few that is true, and I also saw that typically the Premier League team doesn't play their full starting 11 while the FA Cup Challenger does. So that's another thing I have to take into account as well. Although I just took like a brief peruse at the last few community shields. I didn't look into the stats as much as you did. So while overall, yeah, 3-1, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be entertaining. That's what I told you off the pod, by the way. I'm going to be this is going to be, of the two matches, I think this is probably the more entertaining one, if I had to guess now. But yeah, I'm going to say there's a much higher chance of a Palace upset than the bookies, or than anyone is really saying. I mean, this is one of the most underrated teams in the Premier League right now, I would say. And I think we could be in for a shocker here.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I guess if I leave out the draws and it's just who I'm going to have winning, I'd give him like probably a 25. No, I could go a bit higher, like 26-27% chance that Palace win. I think that's not too unreasonable here. They are no doubt the underdogs, but while their path to the win is narrow, it is still credible. If you have like injuries stealing players from them, the route disappears because they really need all the strength they can get to go up against Liverpool. But if Glasner can keep them compact and clinical on the transition, that is all an underdog needs in a single game tourney like this. So I think they have a good chance. Yeah. And I guess if we're done with the Shield, that's going to bring us on to the Super Cup. It is the 50th anniversary of this competition, and what a matchup. Look at the ways that these two different teams got here. We have PSG rolling in as Champions League kings after smashing Inter 5-0 in the final, the biggest margin the final has ever seen. And Tottenham, on the other hand, had a route here that was pure grit. They beat Man U in the Europa League final to claim their first European silverware in nearly 4 decades, almost as long as it's been since Palace had their last trophy. And for a club,
wait, hang on. Let me stop you right there. I don't maybe grit in terms of the score lines, but like say the
their path
say
was
the name
not
of the team to be in the semifinals. Say it. Pronounce it correctly.
Their path
exactly,
was not too difficult.
That's what
to
I
be
thought.
fair. Yeah,
exactly.
That's fine. Okay. Anyways, can they, as Europa League winners, manage to beat the UCL champions? Because I should note, though there have been some close games going to pens, a Europa League winner has not won the Super Cup since Atletico beat their neighbors Real back in 2018. In fact, Atletico were also the second last team to take the cup as Europa champions, and the third last team. It has been ages since anyone besides them has managed to do it. So, Tottenham could break a precedent here if they manage another piece of silverware to start off this new season. Or they could be pummeled like Inter was.
Yeah, or PSG can just be PSG. Like when they're on their day, I don't think it really matters who the opponent is. Here's what I'm looking at. Another issue compared to the Community Shield when we go into the Super Cup is, again, I did not look into the stats of this. I just looked at the last few Community Shields. It seems to me like the favorite, which is obviously the Champions League team, tends to actually play their starting 11 in this tournament. There seems to be a lot more credibility to this, at least in the way that the managers themselves take this tournament, or I guess match, and so that's gonna be something that can go to PSG's advantage. And on the other way, Tottenham are not going to play their starting 11, not because they don't want to, but because Adogi's still injured, Madison's still injured, Kulusevski's still injured, and Solanke is injured. So that's like what? That's 3 to 4 of your starters that are going to be out, and that is going to be a big impact for how Frank likes to line up with this team as well. To be fair, I mean, that's been the thing all preseason, and Frank has known how to play with the substitutes, which can be a good thing later on, and it will help him potentially, at least. It'll help him know how to manage the personnel, I suppose, that he has on disposal. But it's pretty clear that this is a very tough battle on paper, probably tougher than the Community Shield. And with the form that PSG had last season, although they won the Europa League, sure, I mean, the league was pretty questionable. The pathway they got there was pretty questionable, besides beating Man U, I suppose. So, yeah, I mean, I think if we're just looking at this at face value, this feels like an obvious PSG win.
Okay. Yeah. And by the way, you you asked pronounce the team Tottenham beat. I thought it
You
was
don't have to, it's fine.
I thought it was Bodo Glimt. Apparently, it's Budo. So thank you, Norway. Much appreciated.
I didn't know that either. Really, Budo,
Great.
that's crazy.
Yeah. What makes this match?
Is it Udegaard? Does that mean it's Udegaard and not Odegaard? Is that how the alphabet works there?
I have no. I don't want to deal with Nordic languages. Sorry, not my cup of tea. What makes this matchup really interesting for me is PSG and Spurs have never faced each other competitively, as far as I can tell. The only meeting on record is a 2017 friendly, and Spurs won 4-2. It was a friendly, so it's not exactly a blueprint for this match, but it is a sliver of confidence for Tottenham to try and hold on to in the face of the Goliath that is PSG. And
it was also a much better Tottenham team back then and a much worse PSG team, so I don't know.
Right. So there's not much hope here, I think. But
right.
So on paper, the odds go heavily PSG's way. That can also change the mental game a bit. Spurs can play loose, while PSG, they have the weight of expectation, not just because they had that treble earlier in the year, but also because they feel the need to probably make up for that Club World Cup loss. Early season matches can have a way of punishing the favorites that aren't quite tuned into the season yet. So if Tottenham can hit early in the game, I think we might have a real upset brewing.
That's what I'm looking at. I think there's obviously two parts to this. If we're analyzing this, I think it's kind of similar to the Community Shield in the one aspect that that the favorite PSG is going to dominate in possession. Obviously, now Thomas Frank played a very different defensive system than Ange did. Ange was all about that high line, even at the detriment of having a starting 11 of injured players. We're still going to go for the high line. What I've seen from Thomas Frank, at least in preseason, is that he sits back, goes to a 4-4-2 on the defense. The wingers are not pushing up. You just stay back and you just try to soak up pressure. And that's probably the way to go against this PSG team. I mean, every time you try to press them, you just get, Nuno Mendes and Hakimi just absolutely dog walking your team and you're cooked. Now, Hakimi might still dog walk their team because, again, Destiny Udogie is injured and Jed Spence is not exactly the greatest defender of all time. So, does that mean that the central midfielders and defenders for Tottenham have to shift back again? Or I guess shift to the left more? Does that mean that there's more space for Vitinha, Neves, and what's the other guy? Ruiz to take advantage of the space and create more, passes in behind for Dembele as well as the other attackers? The question for whether Tottenham can deal with that, in my opinion, is all down to Paulinho. With Madison and Kulusevski injured, especially Madison could have been a big help to that defensive block. I don't expect Sarr to do much. I guess Bentancur can help out a little bit, but it's going to be a Herculean task that Paulinho has to do to deal with this dynamic rotating midfield that PSG have. It's not a 6, an 8, and a 10. It's three 6.5s, as I said before. It's such a dynamic midfield that like you can't just play a built-in system that's handmade for how PSG attack. You just have to be on your toes at all times.
Yeah, no, there's really not much you can do when you're working with PSG, to be honest. Like you kind of just have to hope that they'll self implode. Like Chelsea played pretty well against them, but I think a lot of that loss was PSG's own undoing, and it's like you kind of just have to hope they're gonna make mistakes that they can take advantage of because you're not beating them at their best. You're just not. With PSG, they have had a very strange lead in for this match. I don't know. They've got
Right.
7 days of training and no friendlies at all. Fresh legs, sure. Match sharpness, that is another question entirely. Of course, they're coming off that historic treble. They've gotten their banners, their champagne, the parade down the Champs Elysees, and now they have a week to get back to the game. Flipping the switch back to full throttle competitive mode will be as much a mental test for them as a physical one. But to be fair, they're still spoiled in attack. You have Dembele, who just hit 21 goals in League One, 33, 34 in all competitions. Maulu, Due, they prove they can step up on the European stage. There's so much talent around here. You have that strong, very, very strong midfield.
Asensio's
Vitinha
coming back too, by
Reis
the way, from
he
Villa.
is, and they have more players who could be transferred in just in time for this game. Like you have Zabarni, who they're still trying to get from Bournemouth. Again, you do need to be concerned about if that Club World Cup final form could carry over into this match. It's been a month, sure, but that's been a month of mostly partying. But it's still PSG, right? This is PSG we're talking about. And like I said earlier, Tottenham is not going to have any faith that they'll be the better team. They're not beating PSG at their best. They just have to hope that they play PSG at their worst, pretty much.
I will say, I think the blueprint for how you want to beat PSG for Tottenham is that Chelsea match. Obviously, you have to get a little bit of luck. PSG have to be off their day a little bit, but that is the way. And it does play into Thomas Frank's system in some ways, but not in others. The main thing I think is what Chelsea did, unlike the other teams that PSG faced in the knockout stage, at least of that Club World Cup, was they didn't try to press at all. They just completely stayed back, soaked up pressure from PSG, and it almost felt like the midfield at times didn't exactly know what to do because they just weren't used to playing a high level team that did that because not a lot of high level teams don't press nowadays. Well, Thomas Frank doesn't, and what did Chelsea do? They played into that 3-1-6-3-2-5 on the offense, having many players on a high line. And when Mensch and Hakimi are so high up the pitch, that could potentially cause problems. The one issue, though, for Tottenham is that the way they sit back, the 4-4-2, means that while, yes, Hakimi and Mensch are pushed very high up, the wingers, Mateus Tell, presumably, as well as Mohamed Kudus, are going to be back a lot. So it's not the same counterattacking ability you'll have that Chelsea did when they had, for example, like Reece James was more willing to step forward compared to what might happen with these Tottenham wingers. So on counters, it's still going to be like a 4v4 and not like it's a 4v4. It's not a 2v4. So for Tottenham to break through that, I think there's mostly two ways. You have to either find good crosses or you have to find one-on-one opportunities. Who's the good crosser on Tottenham? It's Kulusevski and Madison, right? Well, guess what? They're injured. So you're going to have to go for the one-on-ones here.
Yep.
And who's good at one-on-ones? I guess Mohamed Kudus. But he had an offseason in West Ham last season. We'll see how he does. I mean, I'm very happy to chalk that up to just West Ham not being a great fit for him anymore. But it seems like, at least on counters, Kudus might be Tottenham's only hope. And he is probably, in my opinion, the key to the match if Tottenham want to score a goal. And obviously, they have to score a goal if they want to win. The other, I guess, offensive thing is they could try to put long balls in behind, because if we were to look at, if there were a weakness in this PSG defense, I think it would be aerial. And while Slanky is out, Richarlison didn't score a lot of goals in the Prem last year. He only got 4, but 3 of them were headers, so you never know. Paulinho is pretty good at long balls, so you never know. But I don't know. It still seems like quite a long shot, the way I see it.
Yeah, it's not looking great for Tottenham. I mean, if you look at their final preseason game, that could
I'm
not
really
have
trying to
been
be charitable here. I'm really trying to
that could
like,
not
I'm really trying to think of ways for Tottenham to, if everything goes perfect, for them to score a goal.
that final game could not have been a worse dress rehearsal. A 4-0 thrashing by Bayern. The scoreline obviously stings, but I think the bigger worry was how flat they looked. And can you really be surprised if you look at their roster? I mean, you have Madison's ACL injury. He's out for most of the season. Kulu is sidelined too. The creativity has taken a huge hit. That is two of their best chance makers gone in one swoop. And against a side like PSG who live off of controlling possession, that is a nightmare scenario. You have the emotional gut punch of losing Son after a decade as the heartbeat of a club. He has left a huge leadership and morale gap with his leaving. Combine that with Kane's earlier departure, and now Spurs no longer have that one player who can take a big game by the scruff of the neck and take control for their team. You have Kudus, of course. He's an exciting addition. He can run at defenders, win fouls, produce some moments of magic. But again, that creative depth behind him is just paper thin. Richarlison is still hot and cold. The young strikers not quite ready. And if PSG pinned them early, I'm not sure where the spark for a comeback is going to come from.
Yeah, I think that's the issue for me. I'm just gonna say it right now. I think there's a less chance of Tottenham getting an upset here than Palace doing so because at
Oh
least
yeah,
with
no
Palace,
question.
if they go down a goal, I feel like they can always still get one back. But for Tottenham, again, I'm not so sure. Like if we're talking about non-header opportunities, with all due respect, Charleston is not the most clinical finisher. And then you could put Sar will probably be pushed up, but he's also not a natural finisher himself either. So yeah, I just don't know. There is a personal issue. There is a personnel issue I would say for Tottenham right now. Again, it's because of injuries. I don't think it's going to be too much of a concern throughout the season, but that's just the situation that Tottenham are in right now. So, yeah, I guess I'll start with you. What do you think are the odds of a Tottenham upset in this situation, and what is your scoreline prediction?
I mean, let's see. Just okay. I'm gonna give them. It's gonna be significantly less than Palace. I'll say like 16, 17% chance of winning.
Why are your numbers so exact?
I don't know. I'm trying to
That's
average things out in my head.
sure.
Maybe
Okay.
like 15. I don't know because I've looked at the odds makers, right? And there are people that are putting them like 15 to 18% excluding the draw. I just don't see it. No, I don't see the path for them to win. I mean, if even if you look at pens as like a separate thing, PSG they have a decent shootout record as of late. They hit all their shots against Liverpool in the UCL and Lens in the Coupe de France. Tottenham they have less to work off of, but they lost their last shootout to Fulham in the Carabao, and all three of their scorers, Son,
Oh my god,
Kulu,
I just
Madison,
realized. Yeah,
Son, Kulu,
exactly.
Madison,
Cool,
they're
Son
all
Cool
gone.
Madison. That's what I was about to say. Son Cool Madison, and who's their and by the way, outside of those three, who's their best penalty taker? Slinky.
It's just
Oh
so
no.
like if it's pens for me, it just has to be PSG. Like there's not much to work off of for Tottenham, but when you're three guys that scored in the last shootout, which you lost to Fulham by the way, and the three guys you scored in that shootout are gone, all three of them, I just don't see it. That is that's and even if we exclude penalties, ignore it entirely or like cut it up and say, oh, overall, what's the chance of winning? I don't like I'm seeing people saying 18, 19, 20% chance. You're being way too charitable for these
Bro,
guys.
if you get aura farmed by burned Leno, you're so cooked against Donnarumma. It's over.
It's like yeah, no. It's so I'll say what? 15, 16, 17 around there. And that's including whatever sliver of hope they have in a penalty shootout. Because if it somehow gets to 90 minutes, it's going to end up like the Liverpool game where it was like, what? It finished 4-1? That's what I'm guessing. Oh, you know what? No, not 4-1, 4-0. I don't even
Yeah, I
see
don't
them
know
score.
where the one is coming
Yeah,
from.
no, they're not scoring anything. No,
Yeah,
I don't
I
see
only
it.
have a 2-0, but that's only because one, PSG might rotate players in because if I'm Lucho here, I would like to play Zabarni. I would like to play Lee Kang in.
Oh
I would
my
like to
god,
play
it's
Due.
it's gonna be a mercy killing, man.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
gonna be a
like
mercy kill. No, not just that, but also like the new players I'm bringing in. I want to let them adjust to
is
the
this just
game.
gonna be is this just gonna be the Madrid game again? 4-0 Real Madrid. Is that what it's gonna be?
Well, because the thing is, well, let me ask you: if PSG played Real Madrid and they didn't play their starting 11, what would the score be? I would say 2-0.
Yeah, no, that's
So
fair. Okay.
it's a bit rude to say that. It's a bit rude to say to Real Madrid fans that they're only as good as Tottenham. But I mean, that was a really good PSG. They're not going to be that good this time. They're just not. I mean, as you're saying, they still have to readjust competitive football. There's still the morale loss of, yeah, you wanted the treble, but it could have been an invincible run if you won the Club World Cup, which you didn't. So, yeah, I don't expect PSG to be at their best. And because of that, I think they'll control the game. I think they'll dominate. But I don't think they'll try to score too many goals. Against Real Madrid, by the way, in the second half, I mean, I know they scored one, but they really weren't trying to. They were really just sitting back. I could see that happen too. Like PSG, 2 goals in the first 20 minutes, and then they sit back for 70 minutes. That's also what Bayern did too, right? Against Tottenham. And once again, Bayern, I know they scored late goals, but it was not the intention.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, PSG, they practically brought on their reserve 11 against Madrid in that second half, just bringing on all those young players. They still scored one. So I'll just say like maybe, I don't know, they score one each half. And I don't think Tottenham are breaking through. Again, I think PSG are more than strong enough like in the midfield. And Tottenham, again, are just really missing that creativity with no Madison, no Kulu. So I don't see them scoring. So in that case, I'm going to have to agree with you, and I'll say it 2-0.
Yeah. And by the way, I think you said 15%. That's exactly what I have on my notes as well. I think only a 50% chance. There could, like PSG could always have a generational bad day, and Polina and Kudos could always cook, but it's not that likely
Right.
in my opinion.
And it's just like Kudus is seriously Tottenham's only hope here, I feel like. Like you have no Son, no Kulu, no Madison. They have to play through Kudus. And if he doesn't have a breakout performance, I don't see any win. Because again, if it goes to penalties,
but we're gonna be eating crow when Bentancur gets a hat trick in a few days. But yeah,
4-0 Tottenham. I guess they flipped the script on PSG.
4-0 Tottenham. And then Tell scores the fourth.
Of course,
in stoppage time, obviously.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I will say Palace. Definitely, I'm giving him a better shot than Tottenham. I don't know. It's just PSG are such beasts. Like, what do you even do with them? You just have to hope they have a bad day. That's all you can really do.
One thing I want to say before we close the video, Swapno, these are 2 matches where there's clear favorites. How is this a 40-minute episode? What just happened? Because we were discussing how long is this going to be. We're like, yeah, it's going to be like
20,
40,
30
maybe
minutes.
30 minutes.
Of course.
God damn, bro. Do we really ramble this much? Holy shit.
I think I might be turning into Kaibo. I have too many stats on me.
Okay, at least your stats are useful. All right, don't knock yourself like that. Come on.
Okay. I guess we'll end this video here then. Yeah, it's not like a 90-minute video like our last one with the table. There's not that much to talk about here. It's just
thank goodness.
It's just 2 one and done matches, right? So obviously, again, clear favorites, but yeah, I think there is a chance for the underdogs to win. Maybe not for Tottenham. Palace, I think, has a pretty decent shot.
At least one underdog, I think, has a very decent shot.
Yeah. All right. Well, for everyone who's watched up to this point, thank you. We're going to have more content once these competitions end and the Prem starts to get underway. We're going to have predictions for the first match week.
Oh, yeah.
And that is going to continue.
I'm going to be competing against somebody who actually has ball knowledge now. How exciting.
It's too much trash talk.
I'm going to have it's going to be somebody who won't be shitting on Nottingham Forest every episode. How exciting. And not shitting on Everton every episode. Someone who knows who Jared Brathwaite is. That's so exciting for me.
Oh, well, it's a good video, not bad. But yeah, we'll see you guys again for Prem predictions for week 1 of the 25-26 season, and we will be hopefully continuing that series all throughout the season. So make sure to stay tuned. In about a week's time, we'll have a brand new upload for you guys. And yeah, have a good day, folks. We'll see you later.
See ya. And subscribe.
Yeah.